I'm going out tonight. I might not be back until tomorrow, she said casually, buttering her toast, as if she were telling me about a late meeting or a quick trip to the store. I paused, holding my coffee mug halfway to my lips, and looked at her. My voice was calm, too calm. She took a casual bite of her toast, glancing at her phone, her fingers scrolling through something with a faint smirk on her lips. Arrogant. Shameless, I muttered. I'm going out tonight. She met my eyes now, bold and unchallenged. I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe tomorrow. That maybe was what did it. The tiny, smug afterthought, as if I was supposed to be okay with it. She continued before I could respond, speaking as if this was a simple conversation between adults. Look, it's not about you, it's about me. I feel like I got married too young. I never really got to explore. It's unfair to spend a lifetime with just one person when there's so much out there to experience. Society forces us into these rigid expectations. It's unnatural, she sighed, playing the victim. Here she was, with a husband who adored her and a life most people would envy, justifying her decision to betray me as some kind of personal growth journey. I set my mug down. So you're telling me to my face that you're going to sleep with another man? She flinched just a little, then quickly recovered, wearing an annoyed expression as if I was being overly dramatic. It's not about sex. Cut the... I interrupted her, my voice sharp for the first time. For a moment, her confidence faltered. She swallowed and sighed. Fine, yes. I want to sleep with someone else. I need to. I need to know what it's like before it's too late. But listen, it doesn't change anything between us. If anything, it'll make our marriage stronger. I'll be a better wife, more passionate, more devoted to you. She genuinely believed what she was saying, and that's when I realized how far gone she was. She thought she had me figured out. She thought I'd argue, maybe get upset, but eventually accept it. She had no idea what was coming. I took a deep breath, letting the moment linger, letting her believe she was winning. Then I spoke. I'd rather not. Her smirk faded. I leaned back in my chair, calm and unaffected. I'd rather not let my wife sleep with another man. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't like that. She was expecting anger, desperation, jealousy, but instead, she got cold indifference. You don't have a choice, she said, her voice sharper now. I just smiled. Then neither do you. And just like that, the first crack appeared in her armor. She didn't expect resistance. She thought she held all the cards, but she was about to learn the hard way. I don't play fair. She left that night as planned. But while she was gone, I got to work. I didn't drink myself into a stupor. I didn't sit in bed crying over the woman who had thrown everything away. No. I had a plan. Step 1. Destroy her safety net. I froze the bank accounts, locked every joint account, canceled the credit cards, and declined any link to mine. I drained the savings. She'd forgotten that I managed all our finances. The house legally belonged to me. She had no claim. The car was registered under my name. By the time she came home, she would have nothing. But I wasn't done yet. Step 2. Let her think she still had control. I didn't message her. I didn't ask where she was. I didn't beg. I didn't call. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. Let her have her night, because it would be her last. Sunday evening. She strolled in like she owned the place. She looked rough, messy hair, smudged lipstick, dark circles under her eyes, exhausted but smug. Hey, she greeted casually, dropping her bag by the door. Guess I lost track of time. I didn't respond. I was at the grill, tending to a perfectly cooked ribeye steak. The smell filled the air, rich, mouth-watering. She walked closer, her eyes drifting to the food. Would you mind cooking one for me? She asked, smiling slightly. I turned my head, letting her see the coldness in my eyes. Then, with deliberate precision, I said nothing more. I spoke the words that would haunt her forever. I'd rather not. She blinked, and her face fell. In that moment, She knew she wasn't in control anymore. I was just getting started. Her smirk vanished, and her confidence wavered. She stood there, staring at me, processing, trying to understand what had shifted. "You're still mad," she muttered, sighing, as though she were exasperated with me. "I get it, you're upset, but can we talk about this like adults?" I turned the steak over, ignoring her. The grill hissed, and the rich scent of caramelized meat filled the air. She folded her arms. "Come on, are you really going to act like a child over this?" I finally looked at her, my expression unreadable, letting her squirm. "What do you want me to say?" I asked calmly. "I don't know anything. Yell at me, argue, be mad. Just don't act like this. It's creepy." I took my time cutting into the steak, testing its tenderness. Perfect. Then I picked up my plate, grabbed my glass of wine, and walked inside. I didn't say another word. I didn't have to. She was already spiraling. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen later, opening the fridge, the cabinets. Then, panic filled her voice. "Why are my credit cards not working?" The panic was delicious. I took another sip of wine and flipped through a book as I sat in the lounge. A moment later, she stormed in, angry, confused, and desperate. "Did you cancel my cards?" I didn't look up. "You don't have cards," I said simply. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" Her voice cut off as she processed the reality. I saw the gears grinding in her mind as she realized what I'd done. "Where's my money?" she demanded. I turned the page of my book. "Gone." She stared at me, silent, processing. "You froze my accounts." "I'd rather not pay for your little adventures," I replied, my voice calm. Her breath hitched. "Now," she was scared. "You can't do that," she snapped, her voice rising. "That's illegal." "No, it's not." I finally set the book down and leaned back in my chair, watching her unravel. "You forgot, didn't you? Before we got married, we signed a prenuptial agreement. You wanted to prove you weren't after my money, remember?" Her mouth opened and closed. "That contract made it very clear that in the event of infidelity, you get nothing." I smiled slowly, cruelly calculated. "Guess what, sweetheart?" I continued, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "You just admitted to sleeping with another man." She turned pale. "This isn't happening," she whispered. "Oh, it's happening." Her hand shook. I could see the fear creeping in. "I need to call someone. Your phone plan's canceled. It was under my name, too. My car. Also mine. Check the title." She staggered back, as though I had physically struck her. "You can't just take everything from me," she screamed. I raised an eyebrow. "Funny. That's exactly what you tried to do to me." Her chest heaved as she looked around the room, searching for an escape. But there wasn't one, not anymore. A long silence stretched between us. Then finally, she collapsed to her knees. "I made a mistake," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I was stupid. I just thought I needed something different. But I see now. God, I see it now. Please, please don't do this." I stood and walked toward her. She looked up, eyes wet with tears. "I love you," she choked out. "Please, just give me a chance to make this right." I crouched down, tilting my head. Then I said the words she would never forget. "I'd rather not." She packed her bags that night. She had no choice, no money, no home, no life. I watched from the doorway as she stood outside, lost, broken, destroyed. "Where will I go?" she whispered. I shrugged. "Not my problem." Her eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Without another word, she turned and walked into the night. I closed the door for good. The divorce was filed. Her reputation shattered. Her friends abandoned her. And me? I thrived. Dinners, dates, laughs, happiness. She was just a ghost of my past, a lesson learned. Because in the end, some betrayals are unforgivable, and some people simply don't deserve forgiveness. The house was silent after she left. No more footsteps echoing down the hall. No more forced conversations at the dinner table. No more fake laughter. Just peace. And I reveled in it. The first night after she was gone, I sat on the couch with a glass of whiskey, staring at the door she had walked out of. No anger, no regret, no sadness, just satisfaction. I won. She thought she had all the power, all the control. But she never realized she was playing chess with the wrong man. The messages started 2 days later. I know you're mad, but please let's talk. I'm sorry I messed up. I see that now. Just one conversation, please. I smirked and ignored them. 3 days later, she showed up at the house. I watched through the window as she stood on the porch, shifting her weight from foot to foot, looking lost. She knocked. I didn't answer. She knocked again, louder. I took another sip of whiskey and turned up the music. After a few minutes, I heard the frustrated sob she let out before walking away. Good. Let her feel it. Let her drown in the consequences of her own actions. By the end of the first week, the messages changed. You're really going to do this to me? I was wrong, okay? But you can't just throw me away like this. You're cruel, heartless. I should have left you years ago. You're nothing without me. I laughed at that one. Nothing? I was thriving, while she was out there struggling, drowning in regret. I was building something better with each passing day. By the second week, the messages slowed. By the third, they stopped. She was starting to realize there was no coming back from this. Word spread fast. She had no job, no home, and no one wanted anything to do with her. The same friend she thought had her back, gone. The guy she thought would welcome her with open arms, used her, then tossed her aside. She was sinking, and I was watching from a distance, enjoying every second of it. A month passed. Then one night, she called. I saw her name flash on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello. Silence. Then her voice, small, broken, and defeated. I have nothing, she whispered. No one. No money. No place to go. I don't know what to do. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. And what does that have to do with me? A choked sob. Please. I know I hurt you. I know. I was selfish. But I was also lost. You chose this. I cut in, my voice calm, final. I gave you everything, and you threw it away. That was your decision. She sniffled. I just want to come home. I paused, letting the silence stretch. Then, in a voice so cold it could have frozen hell itself, I whispered, I'd rather not. And I hung up. That was the last time I ever heard from her. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. She left town, vanished. Nothing but a bad memory. As for me, I moved on. I thrived. Better, happier, stronger. Because some betrayals are simply unforgivable, and some people aren't worth saving. After I hung up on her, I expected her to try again, to beg, to plead, to force her way back into my life. But she didn't. I later found out why. She hit rock bottom. She bounced from couch to couch, relying on so-called friends who quickly grew tired of her drama. The men she thought would take care of her used her and tossed her aside. She went from luxury to nothing, from being my wife to being homeless. And every time I thought about it, I felt nothing. She deserved it. The first time I went out after she was gone, I expected to feel something. Sadness, regret, a sense of loss. But instead, I felt free. I laughed. I enjoyed myself. I lived for the first time in years. I wasn't trapped. And God, it felt good. I dated. Nothing serious at first. But then I met someone who wasn't a liar. Someone who wasn't selfish. Someone who looked at me like I was the only man in the world. That's when I knew I had truly won. It was 1 year later when I saw her again. I was walking downtown, hand in hand with the woman I had fallen for. And then I saw her. She was standing by a cafe window, staring inside like she was starving. She was thinner, her hair a mess. She wore cheap clothes, nothing like the designer outfits she once bragged about. She looked ruined. Our eyes met. She froze. I didn't. I simply smiled, then walked right past her. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Her number. I almost ignored it, but then I decided, let's finish this. I answered. Silence on the other end, then a shaky breath. "You look happy today," she whispered. I said nothing. "You're beautiful," she added. Still I waited. Then her voice broke. "I wish I never left you." I smiled. "I wish you never did either." A pause. "So is there any chance?" I exhaled slowly, letting her cling to hope for just a second. Then I crushed it. "I'd rather not." And then I hung up for the last time. She faded from my life after that. Never called again. Never tried to reach me. Never even tried to apologize. Because she knew there was nothing left to say. The divorce was finalized. Her name erased from my life. And me? I thrived. Happier. Stronger. Free. Because some betrayals are simply unforgivable and some people aren't worth saving. Her presence in my life was officially gone. Legally, emotionally, financially. But in the back of my mind, I sometimes wondered, where is she now? What was left of her? Not out of regret, not out of longing, but because there was something satisfying about watching someone destroy themselves. And she had done that beautifully. I heard whispers through mutual acquaintances. She had no stable job. She was moving from place to place. She had tried dating, but it never lasted. Why? Because she was damaged goods. She had lost everything, and no one wanted to pick up the pieces. I, on the other hand, had rebuilt. My career was better than ever. My personal life, even better. The woman who had once been my wife, a fading memory, because I had found someone else. A woman who didn't betray me. A woman who didn't lie. A woman who knew my worth. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was truly living. One night, months later, a friend brought up my ex in conversation. "You won't believe what happened to her." I raised an eyebrow. "Tell me." He leaned forward, smirking. "She's working at a diner, one of those rundown places outside of town. She's a waitress now." I blinked, then I laughed. She? The woman who once sneered at normal jobs? The woman who thought she was too good for anything less than luxury? Now a waitress? Oh, the irony. I had to see it for myself. The next evening, I drove to the diner. I walked in and took a seat near the back. Then I saw her. Hair tied back, a faded, ill-fitting uniform. She was cleaning tables. She hadn't noticed me yet. I watched, fascinated, as she moved with exhaustion. She looked older, weary. Finally, she turned. Our eyes met, and her face went completely pale. She swallowed, visibly shaking, then walked toward me. "You came here to gloat?" she asked softly, standing beside my table. I smirked. "I came to see if the rumors were true." She flinched, her fingers tightening around the notepad she was holding. "So, are you happy?" she asked. I tilted my head. "Should I be?" She exhaled sharply, looking away. "I hate this life," she admitted. "I messed up, okay? I lost everything. But I've changed." I said nothing. She hesitated. "I know you've moved on," she whispered. "But part of me hoped maybe I could fix things." I let the words settle. Then I leaned in slightly, my voice low. "You can't fix what's already dead." Her breath caught. Tears welled in her eyes. "So that's it?" she asked, broken. I smiled. "That's it." Then I stood up and dropped a $100 bill on the table. More than enough to cover my coffee. "Keep the change," I murmured, and then I walked away, for the last time. That was the final chapter. She faded into the background of my life. She was nothing more than a forgotten regret. And me? I was free, happier, stronger, unstoppable. Because in the end, some betrayals are unforgivable, and some people are meant to be left behind.